I'd just like to thank you, Dirk, for your introduction. I'll just quickly give you a quick synopsis of where I've come from. I was a school teacher for 35 years, spent 25 years on local authority before I entered Dáil Éireann in 2016. I'm currently Vice Chair of the Good Friday Implementation Agreement Committee and Vice Chair of what Dirk has referred to, the British-Irish Parliamentary Association. I'd firstly like to begin by thanking Mary for the invite. I did say last year when I came here that it was to Ireland's second capital, but I was corrected earlier today that it was better to say the 33rd county of Ireland. So, back when Theresa May called the second general election, and she said, having walked in Wales, that she decided it was the best thing. At that time, I said she should come first and walk the British border in Ireland to see the progress that has been made in people, instead of turning their backs on one another and back to back, where people in communities, politicians, right across the spectrum in the border areas had begun to face each other in a collegiality and a common purpose to make the island an island for all, regardless of your persuasion. I was born in 1958, 10 years before the real outbreak of the Troubles, old enough to remember an unhindered movement when my parents would take us on holidays to the north. But when 1969 came, this had an abrupt stop. My hometown of Dundalk became known as El Paso very quickly. Indeed, when people talk about common travel area, I think it's important that people here would remember that you couldn't, even right up to EU membership, you couldn't travel north in a car without having what was called a triptych. It was a triangular badge which you had to put on the windscreen of your car, and you had to go through an approved customs in order to make sure, believe it or not, that you took the car back. Think about it. I'd also like to remind people on unapproved roads, 38 of them in my county of Louth. People may say that technology can solve any problem. I want to say to you that on the 38 road crossings that are regarded as unapproved, because the markings then by the local authority, and many people don't even remember them, were what I call an upright barber pole in blue and white to tell you were within a half a mile of the unapproved crossing, and if you were in that zone, you would have to turn back. Indeed, I might quickly add that we also, along with having approved roads, unapproved roads, we have concession roads. Concession road is a road that goes through south, north, back into the south, where you travelled unhindered, providing you didn't stop in the northern portion to buy anything. Anyway, the topic here today relates to why and reasons to remain. Again, my earliest memory of the impact when we joined the then EEC was as quite a young boy, when my father sent me to sell cattle at the local mart. When I rang him to tell him the price that the animals made, he said to me that he didn't believe me and asked to speak to the auctioneer. In fact, within 6 months of us joining the EEC, then the price of livestock doubled, because we were opening to a market that we never had before. Reason number one for staying. Again, when I was a young boy, we used to look at envy on the infrastructure north of the border. We used to say, how come the north of Ireland can have such good roads? Within 10 years of us joining the EEC, that infrastructure was reversed, in that our northern brethren were looking down on us in a very short space of time, where they saw both our motorway developments and indeed the various infrastructural addition as a result of the EU. I could simply say that in the case of Ireland, for every £1 at that time that was invested by the Irish state, the EU was investing a further €4, modernising our water systems, our infrastructure, and indeed many substandard conditions. But most importantly, the huge benefit of being part of the EU has been the support for the 1998 Good Friday Agreement. This is possibly the greatest impact our membership has had, not just in the region I live in, but right across the border counties and beyond. Your Mayor referred earlier to the various infrastructural projects in Liverpool. I just want to highlight some of the benefits both to the north of Ireland and indeed to my own county, to show you the type of investment that has come from the EU to bed down the peace process. From a Northern Ireland perspective, the EU has provided extensive support to promote peace and reconciliation, including 3 EU peace programmes from 1995 to 2013, involving EU funding of in excess of 1.3 billion, and the peace programme from 2014 to 20 with a further 237 million. I could go on in relation to the Interreg programme, 248 million in a short space of time. And when we look at models of reconciliation, all you have to do is look at the money that was invested, 14.7 million in the Derry-Donegal Bridge, which I'm sure many of you will see as an iconic version. But when you come to, and the Mayor, he didn't go into specifics, but I think if you look at just Liverpool and Merseyside alone, all you have to do is for any Irish person coming through the Liverpool South Parkway, 10.8 million in EU funding provided. An enterprise hub with 4.6 million provided to help the people of Liverpool, Sefton, Knowlesley, Wirral and St Helens. I could go on, but all I can say to you is that sometimes people don't see the benefit, because I think somebody said to me earlier on today that you tend to see a small plaque with an EU symbol on it, but people don't realise what has been going on. European membership has made Ireland more progressive, and it was a phrase used earlier today, more outward looking as you are here, and has also increased its ability to trade across Europe. Those achievements for Ireland are profound. I now want to talk briefly on the possibility of a no-deal Brexit and what we are doing in Ireland to prepare. We spent all of last week and indeed this week preparing an omnibus no-deal Brexit bill, because we can't afford to take any chances. We need to be prepared. Reference was made to the fact that we have 28 days, and it's extremely disappointing and worrying that we find ourselves in a situation of having to pass this emergency legislation to try and minimise the damage to our country and our citizens because of the EU government's failure to ratify the withdrawal treaty which they negotiated and helped to craft. Our hands have been tied in this entire mess, something which we did not ask for nor create, but nevertheless, as we know, will impact on us heavily. The old adage that if England sneezes, Ireland catches cold springs to mind. Our relationships that have been built up in these two islands have been tremendous, and particularly since the 1998 agreement. Too much to lose, and I firmly believe and hope that there's a sense of understanding beginning to come across this country in relation to how we are going to hugely impact the two islands' capacity to trade. Nothing is clear at present, but Theresa May is delaying the next vote, as we know, until the 12th of March, just 17 days away. I'm just about to finish up, Dirk. The opposition in the UK Parliament have been calling for the deal to be taken off the table and extend Article 50. We would welcome that, and we do believe that in a time-limited opportunity to get it right, certainly the Irish government with the other EU countries would support. We have published emergency legislation. I just want to assure you that on health issues and cross-border, on people's rights, and indeed many issues, there have been bilaterals agreed. but the proof of the pudding will be in the eating in terms of the other statutory instruments that will have to be agreed outside of any of the EU agreements. I know time is limiting me, but I just want to make reference to what might happen to our economy in a no-deal Brexit. We're talking about a 2% increase in unemployment. We're talking about, certainly in a tariff situation, up to 30% on consumer goods. We're talking about 55,000 less jobs. Finally, I want to say, on a lighter note, an EU commissioner stole my line that I was going to use in the Dáil in relation to describing Brexit about the Spice Girls song, "Tell me what you want, what you really, really want." But then I felt that maybe with an older audience, that maybe some of you should listen to The Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, because while it's supposed to be something totally different, when you read it, it actually sounds very much like Theresa May. And for those who are more rural and rustic, I want to say we're dealing with the Kenny Rogers song, "The Train Bound to Nowhere," if we continue on the way we're going, and I think you all know the words of that in relation to playing Russian roulette with poker. It's been a pleasure to be here and to say to you that if there are any specific questions in relation to issues that I haven't had a chance to address, I'll be only too delighted to do so.